Welcome everyone. We're just going to wait a minute or two as more people log in. So hang tight, we'll get started in just a moment. There we go. I see people logging in now. All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope everyone is remaining healthy and safe. My name is Ellie Butler. I am Marketing Manager with IDP Connect, and the past few months have presented us with very, very ambiguous circumstances, as I'm sure you all agree. And truth be told, none of us are experts at managing global pandemics. But we do know that having a robust digital recruitment strategy is absolutely critical to surviving these times. And that's why I am very pleased that you're joining us today for the new landscape of international recruitment, how Michigan State and Green River College reach and engage international students. We have fantastic speakers from here within IDP Connect and from each institution. So I'm very pleased to introduce you to them. If each of you could chime in, introduce yourselves, and share a little bit about what you do. We'll start with Abby.
Thanks, Ellie. Yes, I'm Abby Briggs. I am the Senior Client Manager here with IDP Connect. I'm based just outside of Boston, and I'm looking forward to a great session here.
Awesome. We'll pass to Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah Bontice. I'm an international admissions counselor at Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. All right, and over to Alvin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alvin Tai. I'm the Director of International Outreach at Green River College, and I'm based in Auburn, Washington. And I'm proud to say that I've been working for Green River for the last 16 years. Thank you.
Nice. That's incredible. All right, and last but not least, over to Mark.
Hi, my name is Mark Milston, and I'm the International Marketing Regional Director at Green River College, also based in Auburn, Washington. And I recruit students from Africa, the Middle East, and Japan. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Well, we have a lot of great content to get to today. The session will be recorded, and if you have questions, we encourage you to use the question tool throughout the webinar. It's located to the right of the main webinar window. If there are any questions we don't get to, we will follow up with you after the call. And at this point, I will pass it to Abby to jump on in.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellie. So again, so glad that so many of you are able to join us here today. I see a lot of our partners as well as new faces. So welcome. So I'm just quickly going to share a little on IDP Connect before I pass the mic over to our friends at Michigan State and Green River College. So for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are the B2B arm of IDP, and we engage with students on our global platform, which consists of both digital and physical footprint. And like most industries, we've seen a drastic shift over the last few years to purchasing online. So I'm sure you can relate with ordering essentials on Amazon. I know I just placed an order for grocery deliveries. We just have so much available at our fingertips these days. And in a similar sense, we've seen students going from walking to one of our counseling centers looking to really start the process. Now these students are coming in after doing quite a bit of research online on their own. So as we experienced this shift, IDP kind of followed suit with the strategic acquisition of HOP courses back in 2017, and we redeveloped and redefined the future of student recruitment by using our data set to really understand prospective student demand and build our global platform. So on the next slide here. So taking a look at data, these days we know that every good strategy starts with data and understanding demand. So looking at the data can tell you what your institution can do to be more competitive. So what type of data are you using right now? It's likely maybe historical application data, open doors, organic website traffic. And the reality is that while this type of data is fantastic, it's really representative of historical data rather than predicting where students will come from in the future. And so why is it so important to use data? Well, before we can market you and help you market your institution, you need to figure out who your target audience is. Where is there demand for the programs that you offer? And within those countries, specific cities where there might be a pocket of students really looking for your programs. So this depends largely on your school's unique academic value. So your top programs, maybe programs that you're looking to grow, and really what differentiates you from your peers. But also, what are some of the student mobility drivers from each of these markets? So for instance, what do you need to be aware of in order to recruit students effectively from Vietnam? So as I mentioned before, the historical piece is fantastic, but it's really only one component, and it's best when supported with real-time student data, like that of our demand tracker. Next slide here. So we help our partners use data to guide their recruitment strategy. Our data comes from a variety of different sources and places within IDP Connect. So the first is our demand tracker. We also have data available from our IDP student placement, as well as that of our student buyer behavior surveys and sector data. So we understand that shrinking enrollment budgets really require you to make smart choices and invest your resources where you're going to see the most return. And data can really help you guide and make the right decisions. Awesome. So our partners have access to our data on varying different levels. The first is on-demand access to our demand tracker. And this really allows you to log in at any point in time, view reports and relevant dashboards. But then we also offer more in-depth consulting services where our IQ team really analyzes your institution. What programs do you offer? Where have you seen students coming from in the past? Maybe why? What does your recruitment strategy look like right now? And our team pulls data and builds dashboards specific to you to make recommendations on your recruitment strategy. So we can really help benchmark your performance against your peer institutions and uncover emerging opportunities. Next slide here. Awesome. So one of the most common questions I get these days is, how has COVID-19 changed international student demand? And we can actually look into our demand tracker and see in real time how student search is trending. So here you can see search demand since the beginning of 2020 and how it's really changed over the last few months. So while the US is currently in 4th place, so following the UK, Canada, and Australia, we've actually remained steady during this uncertain time. But so that's kind of interesting. And what I think that really indicates to me is that international students who are looking to come to the US still are interested in coming here. So we can break it down further, as if I were to just click into that US line and just analyze the US demand. So I've broken it out here by both undergrad and grad. And you can watch kind of a similar trend leading up to when the pandemic was announced and kind of what things have looked like since. I do think it's worth noting that prior to the pandemic being announced, the 2020 search had exceeded that of the same period in 2019. So our demand tracker is really great for keeping an eye on students' response to a current event. We'll certainly be keeping a very close watch in the next few weeks leading up to the presidential election, and once the results are released, and what international student demand, how it's changed and what it looks like. So through the tool, we can also click into specific countries to see demand. So in this example, we're taking a look at India. And you'll notice we can look at India as a whole or break it down by city. And we could drill down even further if we wanted to look at a certain program or study level. A lot of times, India is kind of a grad heavy market, but if you're looking to promote your undergrad programs, there is a lot of opportunity within, and we can help you uncover where that might be. We've also noticed different trends out of India. I know over the last year or so, we've been watching a decline in interest for engineering programs. And so our partners that are using this tool can uncover these trends early and start to plan where they might be able to diversify in order to not see a drop in enrollment numbers. So since our data is looking at student searching today, it's a great indication of enrollment trends, maybe 12 or 18 months down the road. And it's great to be able to see them very early. Next slide. So after you've looked at the data and developed a plan on specific countries or cities to focus on, you're then kind of ready to figure out how you're going to reach these students. So you may rely on search engines, word of mouth, maybe social media or university ranking sites. We can go on to the next slide here, but just as you would use Yelp to find the best restaurant, students are using college search sites like Hot Courses to research and compare different institutions. So we call our profiles content hubs, and they're really focused on video-led content, allowing you to showcase what makes your institution unique. So on the next slide here, I have an example for you, taking a look at Virginia Tech's Content Hub. Well, thank you. Awesome. So I like to think of these content hubs as really an extension of your school's website. So we work with you to build these out and really make sure that your brand is consistent. So we give you the opportunity to tell your story and give students the information that they're looking for that we've then translated into the local language. So there's high quality, relevant content throughout, and it's really customized depending on the market. So for instance, we know students from India are looking for very different information than a student from Vietnam or from Latin America. And so we really rank the information in an order to make sure that the most relevant content for that country is listed on top. There's also these two call to actions. So students are able to click through to your website where we then help you set up Google Analytics to accurately track these students and their activity, but they can also submit an inquiry via the contact institution button. We list all of your programs and link to your social media, so you'll actually see students coming through and following you directly from the Hot Courses page. There's also a section for student reviews, which really allows a prospective student to learn from their peers and someone who was maybe making a similar decision a few years ago. So we can click through to the next slide whenever you're ready. Thanks. So like any initiative, measuring ROI is really important, and we try to really help you do it in a few different ways. We know if you have a CRM, you're likely able to track those leads and see how they've converted into applications or enrolled students. But throughout the year, you're able to log into this dashboard on an on-demand basis and see how many views your profiles have had, how many impressions and inquiries and web clicks, and really drill them down by country, specific program, are they coming looking for grad or undergrad, and really track throughout the year. But we also have a second tool called our enrollment matching tool. And you upload a spreadsheet of your enrolled students into our tool, and it matches against our database of students who have viewed your profile. And it generates a report showing you really true ROI. So it's really helpful for accounting for stealth applicants, or maybe we know that in most cases, students don't find you just through one source. So, this is one way to capture a student that was viewing your content hub and it was one important piece in their journey. So of course, understand that our data and marketing is only really one piece of recruiting. So I'm happy to pass things over to Sarah to introduce herself and discuss how Michigan State recruits international students.
Thanks so much, Abby. And thanks for inviting me to speak today. I am really happy to be here and sharing a bit about Michigan State University and our marketing and recruitment strategy for international students. You can go ahead to the next slide. I want to preface this by saying I'm a counselor. I'm an international admissions counselor. I am not part of our marketing team, and we actually have separate teams here at Michigan State. But I work really closely with our marketing team and worked with them to produce this today. So I'm going to share a little bit about the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, International Recruitment and Marketing Strategy. You can progress to the next slide. Thank you. Before I dive in, I wanted to share a little bit of background and context for who Michigan State University is. We are quite a large university. We usually are in about the top 15 largest universities in the US. Obviously, we're based in Michigan, in East Lansing, Michigan. Our total student population is about 50,000 students, and the majority of our students, almost 40,000, are undergraduate. So our incoming class last year was about 8,500 students, and our students come to us from all around the globe. We have students who are coming to us from over 140 different countries. We also have students coming from each of the 50 states and every county in Michigan as well. So there's 83 counties. They're all represented by our students. I should also say that I work specifically with students from the Western Hemisphere. So it's not too big of a territory. It just is, you know, about half the globe. But I specifically focus on Latin America. That's where the majority of my travel and recruitment takes me. I also work with students from Canada and then students in the US, international students in the US who are finishing their studies here. You can go on to the next slide. So I want to start by saying when I was in undergrad, I studied strategic communications. And one of the things that was really drilled into my studies and I've taken in the past 8 years working in admissions is that you have to really understand who your audience is before you can really effectively communicate with them. So something that I appreciate so much about our marketing team here at MSU is that they take time to help us understand who we're talking to when we're going out and recruiting students. So learning more about Gen Z, and again, I've been working in admissions for about 8 years, and so through that time, the students I'm working with have progressed more solidly into Gen Z from millennials. So there are slight changes and differences. And most of the research that's been done on Gen Z or the studies have focused on either American or Western audiences or demographics. So when I have talked to international counselors, guidance counselors around the globe, they've really resonated with some of the stuff that we've talked about Gen Z. So while it might have been focused on a Western audience when it was started, I think because of how globalized things are now, that a lot of these things can be true of international students as well. So just understanding who we're working to recruit, who we're marketing to, who we're talking to at the other end of an email, both personally, but also in a larger sense of just who Gen Z is altogether. And that has helped us, I think, be more effective in our marketing. You can go on to the next slide. And I also have worked at both a small private institution as well as Michigan State. And so one of the tools in my toolkit when it comes to recruiting students is brand recognition. So not that that is, you know, the end all be all, but it certainly helps having a little bit of name and brand recognition when I travel. That's definitely aided me. I still get confused for another university in Michigan. So it's not to say that everyone knows everything about Michigan State, but it really helps aiding us, I think, in our recruitment, that there's just like a baseline of understanding, or like, hey, I think I've heard of you before. And that definitely assists us in our marketing and recruitment strategy. It's just somewhat of a sense of familiarity with us, no matter what students actually know or what we might have to correct about what they think they know. You can go on to the next slide. All right, so talking about our recruitment and marketing strategy, I'm going to highlight two main things: accessibility and affordability. So starting with accessibility, one of the things that we as counselors wanted for a really long time was translations. And so working with IDP Connect and Hot Courses to get these translations on our website has been amazing. And I think there's a little bit of trepidation when it comes to having translations when it comes to international recruitment, because the thought is, well, students have to speak English or be proficient in English in order to enroll here, so why would we need to provide that? But something I think that can be really beneficial is understanding that parents are oftentimes decision makers. They are influencing those decisions. And in my time in international admissions, I've worked in both Africa and Latin America. Right now, I obviously am working in Latin America, but in both regions, parents have a lot of influence over those decisions. And even when students have had an education in English, oftentimes parents might not be as proficient in English, even if their child is. So having these translations on our websites, I think, is nice and accessible for students, but it also aids us with parents too. So I think that's a little bit of an overlooked thing that translations can aid in. You can go to the next slide. Awesome. And so another thing that we focus on is being visible and accessible to where students are going. So when students are going to these search sites, they are already demonstrating interest. And so these are quality leads that we're able to get from IDP Connect. So when they are going and searching out specifically universities in the US, that's a level of demonstrated interest that we can take then. And instead of going out and trying to find all of those leads, we work with great vendors and partners to get those leads and then spend our time as counselors really nurturing those relationships and building on those. So I also am going to note here, as a counselor, I work primarily with recruitment, but I also am a nerd and love data, and I love our CRM. We have Salesforce, and so I work getting those leads from IDP into our CRM, and they will enter into one of our drip campaigns. In understanding Gen Z, I think it's important that our marketing team is really thoughtful in the content that they push out to students, so it's not an overwhelming amount of emails that goes out to students. We aren't clogging up their inbox all the time, but we're sending thoughtful communications and then allowing them to connect with us on other platforms and social media. You can go on to the next slide. All right, so this is a COVID specific thing that I wanted to highlight. Sorry for my dog, everyone. He just woke up and he has things to say as well. So one thing we know that during this time, the need for human connection and personal connection hasn't gone away. It will never go away. So while we can have really great technology and software and support, students still are going to want to connect with someone on campus. And there's, I think, a greater demand for someone to just be there to hear their concerns. A lot of times as a counselor, I don't have answers in that moment, but I can always be an empathetic listening ear and really hear students or parents out. That's one of the things I think that makes me effective as a counselor, is that I'm someone who can listen and really hear out what students or parents have to say. Even again, but I don't have information for them in that moment, I can always follow up. So we've used Calendly. All of our counselors now have a Calendly account set up, and it's linked on our website where students can go and schedule an appointment with us right away. And so I've done a lot of Zoom calls with students all over Latin America specifically, but it's been really nice having this tool to help us during this time to sort of encourage or be even more accessible to students than we were prior. All right, next slide. And then accessibility, and then going into affordability. So I was really fortunate when I joined MSU. We had just expanded our international student scholarships, And affordability is something we also focus on in our marketing and recruitment strategy. And I know this is something that isn't, in reach for every school, but it was certainly been very helpful for us in our recruitment of undergraduate international students. In my first year here, we saw a growth of over 130% in Latin America. And while I would love to claim all of that as being, a direct result of my efforts, the reality is that the scholarships that we were able to offer helped us become more affordable and comfortable for a lot of students. And so that's really reflected in the yield we've had for the past 3 years, and will continue forward. So these aren't full ride scholarships by any means. These are scholarships that range between $1,000 and $25,000, but it's been very, very helpful in recruiting a very diverse class of students from all over the globe, as being able to help make MSU a little bit more affordable. Right. So when we're on these different search engine sites or through our own marketing and recruitment, there's a few main points that we like to stick to with our content. So I talked a little bit about accessibility prior to this, but I'm meaning it in a slightly different way when here I say access, community, effect, and value. So access meaning that when students come to MSU, they're going to have access to a lot of resources and support. They will be able to customize their experience and make it their own. So we focus on that when we are talking to students about access. Community meaning that we're large, we're diverse, seeing all of the different ways that they can connect with people, either in their program or different students. We focus on that, as well as effect. So the value and effect of what students can come away with an MSU degree, and again, value connecting to the value, the affordability of our degree for students. So these are what we focus on in our content themes on all of the different platforms where we're out there recruiting students. So that was brief, but I'm gonna pass my time on, and thank you so much for having me, and I'll be around for questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Sarah. This is Alvin Tai from Green River College. I'm the Director of International Outreach. And joining me today, we have Mark Milston, who's our International Marketing Regional Director. So today we're going to be presenting on how Green River College reach international students. And the agenda for today is, we're going to share with you a little bit about our marketing structure here at Green River College. And we're also going to be talking about some of the marketing strategies and investment that we have recently employed as a result of the pandemic. And last but not least, we're going to share with you what are we doing differently to optimize our content. Because at the end of the day, our goal here is to be able to attract more students to Green River College. Thank you very much. Next slide. So to give you an overview of Green River College, we have about, now this is pre-COVID-19, by the way, we have close to about 10,000 students in overall enrollment, with about 16 to 17% of international students, depending on the quarter. And we are a marketing-based, target-based marketing team. We have about close to approximately 10 recruiters here at Green River College, both full-time and part-time. And we are all target-based recruiter. We each have our own target, and we each manage our own budget that is being derived from the overall budget set by the college. So how it works actually. So right in front of you is kind of a picture of how we operate within our own marketing team. We rely primarily on agents and partners to get our students. So over the last 20 odd years that we have been recruiting international students, we have relied on our partners to get about 85% of our students from more than 60 over countries. And 15% of our enrollment comes from direct. Direct meaning students who have gone to our website to look at our content and who actually applied directly without the help or aid of our international partner. Now, obviously, things have changed recently, all right? As we look at this funnel, we as a marketing team has been thinking about, okay, now that marketers are not traveling as often, the amount of time that we have in terms of face-to-face contact with our overseas partner, our prospective parents and students have diminished significantly. We have been asking ourselves, how can we build or create more opportunities for ourselves to fit into our recruitment funnel? So as a result, over the last 4 or 5 months, we have been collaborating with IDB Connect, which is our very new platform that we could feed into our recruitment funnel, which I will talk about shortly. Next slide. To help you to understand how we operate as an organization, all right, our 4 main marketing engines. If you look at this diagram on the far left is obviously our partners from all over the world. So each marketer actually manage their own account, and each marketer has been allocated their own specific country. As Mark mentioned a while ago at the beginning of this presentation, he recruits primarily in Africa, Japan, and some other countries, and I recruit primarily from the Southeast Asia region. And our second marketing engine is our direct application, which has increased significantly post-COVID-19. And we rely a lot on social media, and now recently IDB Connect. So all these 4 different engines fit into our recruitment pipeline. And once we get an application actually goes through 8 very strict stages or 9 different matrix that we call here at Green River to make sure that once we get a lead, we are able to convert a student from application all the way up to enroll. Now, taking number 1 as an example, when we receive an application, we don't take it for granted that students who have actually submitted an application will actually eventually arrive at Green River. That does not happen automatically. So we together as an organization, together with our admissions team, work very, very closely with other entities within our organization to make sure that every single application goes through these 8 stages. The review process is a critical one because upon review, we want to make sure that I-20 gets sent out in a timely fashion. So we like to say that our I-20 gets shipped out within 5 business days because time is money, especially when you're working with certain countries that are time sensitive. Because if you snooze, you might lose. Your students might go to another institution or to another country. And along the way, as a marketer, as a recruiter, we also track all the things that we need to track. For example, housing, housing fee paid, CVIS, class registration. At the end of the day, this recruitment pipeline or channel or these 8 stages help us as a recruiter to track a students from application all the way through enrollment. Next slide, please. Here at Green River College, we use Salesforce as our main CRM. You are currently looking at a report that we run every week to monitor and track and engage our students. So how does it work in a nutshell? As I mentioned, all our recruiters are target-based. So we are watching our numbers and our applications like a hawk on a daily, if not weekly and monthly basis to make sure that we meet our target. So when we run our data, when we run our report, which we rely heavily upon, we are looking at 2 main components. Number 1 is our completed apps. Number 2 is our incomplete apps. So let me run through some of the thought process and some of the action items that we take as a recruiter when we are dealing with these 2 specific variables. Let's talk about completed apps to begin with. So as a marketer, when I receive a completed apps, I cannot be complacent because I have to make sure that these completed apps will eventually convert to enrollment. So in between that process, as a marketer, what do I monitor? What do I track? And what specifically do I engage? So just to give you an example, once an application is completed, I-20 sent, we make sure students pay their CVIS fee. Number 2, we make sure students schedule for a visa interview. We also want to know if a student have scheduled for an interview and whether they pass or they fail. And if they pass or if they fail, are they going to go for a second attempt? And if they pass, all right, we're going to chase down on a copy of their visa, their flight arrival information. We're going to chase down on class registration, working very closely with the advisors. We also want to make sure that our team continuously engage with our students, so they are constantly thinking about Green River prior to their arrival, and to ensure that they have a great experience during the entire transition process. Number two, so what do we do with our incomplete apps? We chase them down like a hawk, because a key incomplete app means there are missed opportunity that we can slowly work on to convert them into an application. So incomplete apps, we could probably chase down on, for example, financial statement, transcript, passport, or anything that is missing in order for us to complete the application. In essence, incomplete apps are basically viable students who have made the commitment to submit an application. Then it's up to our responsibility to work very closely with all these incomplete apps or prospective students to make sure that they choose Green River College. Next slide. So recently, as I mentioned before, we have signed up with IDP Connect to increase our funnel, because we felt that as a result of this diminishing opportunity for marketers to travel abroad, we need more resources to get our leads. So over the last few months that we have worked with IDP Connect, we have seen significant results in the number of leads that we're getting on top of those that we are already getting from our agents and from our direct apps. But one of the features that we felt that was really, really helpful for us in terms of helping us with our recruitment pipeline is the demand tracker within IDP Connect. So I'm going to talk about three here today, which are primarily destination, cities, and major. So what does it mean? So using those data coming from IDP Connect, we are asking ourselves very simple question. How are we recruiting in those countries? Right? Are we using the right resources? Do we have the right people? Do we have the right connection? Or have we been operating at certain countries? Or have we not been operating at certain countries which we have seen a spike in interest through the IDP demand tracker? And not only that, if we are already operating in a certain country, for example, say using Vietnam as an example, which I frequently visit, all right, there are thousands and thousands of cities within each individual country. And over the last 16 years that I work for Green River, I have primarily focused on Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi. All right, those are my two primary target cities. But I'm sure many of you are asking this question. There are so many cities around Vietnam or whatever countries you are operating from. Where else can I go within a particular country to source for more leads and to source for more students? This is where IDP Connect Demand Tracker can come in very, very helpful to help us to identify specifically where the interest, where the leads are coming from, even within a city. Another thing that's helpful for us is to be able to look at, okay, what are the students interested in studying, or in terms of what they intend to major in, because this helps us to shift and focus and change our marketing messages out there to pinpoint on certain countries, certain cities, or certain majors that students are interested in. For example, Green River has a very robust aviation program. We actually offer commercial flight as well as helicopter pilot license that we would like to offer to very specific countries or cities that have a very specific interest. So that actually helps us with our target marketing focus. So what is the outcome as a result of being an IDP Connect partner? Definitely more leads. Every 2 weeks, we get leads in the form of a report, which ultimately, eventually, will also feed into our CRM. And the best thing is that we have a two-pronged approach. What do I mean by two-pronged approach? So any leads that has come through IDP will be managed and followed up by the IDP counselor. And we, as a marketer within our individual institution, we also have the opportunity to actually follow up and to also close in the gap and eventually convert the leads into an actual application. Now, as what Ali had mentioned a while ago, IDP Connect is actually an extension of our branding, of our institution, of our website. So having an additional profile out there on the World Wide World actually helps us with our recruitment as well as marketing. Next slide. So now I'm going to hand over to Mark Milston, who's going to and he's going to talk about how specifically are we altering, changing, and reinventing our content within all the social media platform to attract more students. Mark, thank you very much.
Thanks, Alvin. So as we try to optimize our marketing content, we look at three different things: relevancy, being current, and being consistent. So we want to provide information that students are really interested in rather than what we think they might be interested in. So we look at data from IDP Connect and find out what majors are most popular in the areas that we're marketing. We meet every week with all of the recruiters at Green River College, and we share experiences about what students have asked about, what concerns they might have, so that we can understand what they're looking for and we can provide answers for students. We also try to be as current as possible. So that means updating all of the information as often as possible to cover topics that students are interested in now. So COVID, what's the situation locally? They might be getting national news, but they might not know what's happening in Washington State or even King County specifically. And then online classes, do we offer them? What time are they? Can they take them from their home country? Are they flexible where they can log in at any time, or do they have to meet at certain specific times where it's a more virtual classroom experience? And then are embassies opening up? What's it like in their country? What are other students having to do? Are there any changes? So we're really trying to provide that information that is current and valuable for students as they are in the application process and preparing to take classes and enroll at Green River College. And we also try to be consistent. So if we create a program where we say we're going to post something every Monday, we need to make sure that every Monday we are posting that thing. And sometimes we might be posting daily on certain areas of our social media presence. So those are the three areas where we try to optimize our marketing. Next slide, please. So then what content do we use? I think at Green River College, we always try to focus on the student voice so that students can hear from their peers and they can more easily sort of understand where they're coming from. And I think they believe hearing from other students rather than recruiters and staff members and things like that. So we look at student testimonials and student social media ambassadors and major Mondays. So student testimonials we gather every year around graduation time where students can talk about where they're going, where they've been accepted, and what majors they might have. So we really try to compile a great list of students from a variety of different majors and a variety of different countries going to a variety of different universities so that we can share. So for example, if I meet a student at a virtual fair and they say, oh, I want to study business and I want to transfer to a university in Canada. Well, I can probably show them one of our international students who also did that exact same thing. So they can actually visualize and understand the path that they want to take, and they know that someone has already taken that path and we can help them get there as well. Next slide, please. We also have hired social media ambassadors to help us on all different platforms. So these students will sometimes do a social media takeover and post 30 different stories about their day. They also do student interviews. Well, they'll interview other students, current students, and talk about those relevant things. For example, what is it like to stay in your home country and take online classes at Green River College? Or what is it like to live on campus at Green River while there's online classes? And so students can hear both the highs and the lows and get a real understanding of what that experience is, because we want students to know, that Green River is right for them so that they can stay here and complete their degree and transfer. And then we also do Monday Majors, which is something we started about 2 months ago, where we have our advisors actually sit and answer questions live for students. And then afterward, those videos are hosted on our social media platforms. And they've been really well received. Some of our most popular videos covering our bachelor's degrees have actually had over 5,000 views. So it's a great way for us to get students interested and to realize what kind of majors that they can actually study at Green River College. And then for recruiters and marketers, it's great for us if a student says, oh, I'm interested in communications. Well, we have a 30 to 40 minute video with probably all the questions you have about that major that you can watch. And that also brings them to our social media platforms and is able to get us more involved and you know, in their idea of this is where I want to go, this is what we offer. So next slide, please.
Thank you very much, Mark. So we would like to leave you with some departing thoughts using some of the questions that we ask ourselves as marketer, as a department. First and foremost, do you know your target? Because as a marketing team, we strongly believe that if you don't know what is your outcome, you can never be successful as an institution. Do you have the right marketing engines? Do you have the right partners? And even with that, are they effective? And even if you're getting 100 or 1,000 applications, it does not mean anything, because at the end of the day, are they viable leads that you can ultimately convert to an actual enrolled matriculated students at your institution? Just to give you an example, if I have a target of 100, does it mean as a marketer, I'm going to go out and hunt for 100 applications? The answer is absolutely not, because we have something called conversion rate or yield. You have to understand the yield rate within your own market, within your own countries or cities or agents, or even by semester or quarter. So if you know that your yield rate is only 20% and you need to recruit 100 students to meet your target as an individual or as an organization, you better be out there sourcing for leads through whatever platform that you use, that you have at least 400 applications, because 400 applications may ultimately drill down to only 100 completed apps. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark and Alvin. That was super interesting. And thank you to Sarah as well. Everybody had great presentations, and it's so valuable for us to hear about your strategies firsthand. I love the balance of some paid options, some unpaid options, opportunities that institutions can take advantage of right now. And I also love those questions that you included at the end there, Alvin. I think so important for international recruiters to be asking those right now. So at this point, we will look to the questions that our audience members have been asking throughout. And I see we have one that says, do you know what percentage of applications from IDP come from digital lead sources? That might be one for Abby to take.
Yeah, sounds like one for me. Yeah, so I didn't touch too much upon this, but for our core members, which are the colleges and universities that work with us both for student placement and for digital marketing, they can elect to have IDP counselors and nurture the leads coming through from their hot courses profiles. So when we look at those leads and the conversion of those leads by our counselors, I think last year we saw that of all of the students that our IDP counselors placed, roughly 40% of those came from a digital lead source. So that was really encouraging. I think it was up over 25% from the year before. So we're really seeing a trend of IDP student placements originating as a digital marketing lead. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it really underscores just how important it is to have that digital presence. I see another question here for Michigan State and Green River. How frequently are you reaching out to students once they inquire and once they apply? Are you reaching out weekly, every 2 weeks, etc.?
I can go. I would say it really depends on the student, because some of it is determined on how much they engage with us once we are reaching out to them. So some of our campaigns are going to be prompted by actions they're taking. So they get a few introductory emails to who MSU is, and those will prompt them to continue on by completing their application. And there's other emails that go on in that drip campaign. But sort of what I mentioned about knowing who we're marketing to in Gen Z, they're not getting very frequent communication for us if they're not responding at all to those initial prompts. So I don't know in terms of pacing, how frequent to say it is, but I would say a lot of it is going to be driven by the students engaging or completing one of those prompts to get further communication from us.
Sure, that makes sense. About the back and forth.
Email is obsolete, all right, if we're talking about the younger generation. So as a true recruiter or as a marketer, I would advise all of you to look at your cell phone and look at how many of those social media platforms you currently have, depending on where you operate. For example, WhatsApp, Viber, Kakao Talk, Line, Messenger. All right, communication doesn't stop, especially when you're working with students around the globe. They could be texting you at 2 a.m. in the morning. Do you wait or do you respond? The choice is yours.
Very good point.
And I would say a lot of times students, when they apply to Green River College, it's not going to be one complete package. So a lot of times we're following up and trying to get all the other things that they might be missing to try to convert those incomplete applications to completed applications. So there's a lot of back and forth and dialogue, and it does go all over the map, from email to phone calls to text to WhatsApp. But I think just kind of always following up and making sure, and all the way through the interview date, did you get your interview? Okay, here's next steps and things like that. So we try to communicate quite a bit, particularly when we're chasing stuff.
Definitely, yeah, very frequent communication. Again, back to that theme of engaging the back and forth. So it makes a lot of sense. Thank you all. Next question is, how do you determine new markets to enter or test? What data do you use to get internal support and buy-in?
I can answer that quickly. So when I started recruiting in Africa, we didn't really have much of a presence. So I wasn't sure quite where to go, how to approach the big continent. So I looked at visa approval rates and overstay rates and data like that to try to narrow down my focus so that I could figure out about maybe the first 5 or so countries that I would sort of work with. And then grow from there after those were more established. That's kind of what I was looking at. And things are changing now. Our students are taking online classes from their home country, so visa approval rates aren't quite as important right now. So I'm able to work with students from a greater variety of countries.
So
I would say, oh, go ahead, Alvin. Oh,
no, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. I was just gonna say, there's a lot of different things I look to in determining what are markets that we want to get into. I think I've benefited a lot at both institutions I work from having well-established relationships in those regions, so in Africa and Latin America. And so part of it is just inheriting good work that's already been done to establish good relationships. But then when I'm thinking of where I'm going to travel to, where we're going to be investing in, I look to data about median income levels and searching out sort of what economies are doing well, what's affecting different economies, and that will drive some of it, as well as then student interest using the IE open doors reports each year, looking at those. And then it's also a combination of working with partners on the ground, so and getting well-established relationships with guidance counselor, Education USA advisors, independent counselors, so you can have a sense of what's going on the ground, as well as then looking at trends year over year. So I consult a bunch of different things. The most recent example would be I wanted to do more in Mexico. I feel a little bit at a disadvantage because whenever I want to suggest a new territory, it really just sounds like I'm trying to take a nice vacation. So I really wanted to invest in Mexico, and we have seen growth in Mexico as a result of those travels. But sometimes it can be, I have to come with a lot of good data to back what I'm trying to do, so they don't think I'm just trying to take a week off in the Caribbean.
Absolutely, that is the challenge of working in international recruitment.
Yes, it is.
And just to add, to speak to what Abby mentioned earlier, there also is our demand tracker data, which a lot of our partners use to identify markets to visit, track search demand, so you can see kind of the real time up and coming data of where student demand is really growing in different subject areas. You can break it down by the city level. So another good option in addition to some of the more historical sources like Open Doors and previous application data and that sort of thing. So Mark, I know you mentioned students who are studying from their home countries, and that brings us to our next question, which is, do you offer any additional scholarships in addition to your regular offerings for students who are taking remote or online courses? Or do you have any specific awards for students from specific sources, such as IDP Connect?
I would say that, our tuition rates are the same for the online classes currently, and students are able to apply for the same scholarships. And we try to frame it in, they don't have to pay for housing, they don't have to get the required insurance, and then it would hopefully help them in their visa approval as they show that they can pay their tuition on time and they're making progress towards their degree. And then I think we work with individual agencies. So with IDP, we would have specific scholarships that we might work with individual offices or agents with, or advisors, counselors with, where we would award students possibly for scholarships, but nothing sort of standard across the board.
Great, thank you.
I like to respond to that question in the form of a math question. Because essentially scholarship, all right, if you talk about scholarship, the first question you have to ask yourself is, how much money do you want to make as an institution? It's a profit margin at the end of the day. For example, if your tuition fee is $10,000, will it hurt if you give out $1,000 as a scholarship? With $9,000 left in your pocket, will you still be able to make it? So the question is, can you offer as many scholarships as you can out there, and in what amount? So use a math formula to equate that question.
I like it, Alvin. Useful formula. Cool. Well, I see we are coming up close to the hour mark, so this will be our last question. Someone is asking, there are so many virtual events on the market nowadays. How do you choose which to participate in?
Yeah, that's been a very interesting thing as a counselor. And I will say it's been, for our office, I feel like it's been hit or miss. Our strategy a lot of times is to go with our trusted, established relationships with third-party providers that we've either traveled with before or we know. So CIS has been a big one, or KIC, where we know that they have a great network of counselors on the ground again in those countries. So we've seen mixed results. I think I've gotten really lucky in that I feel like everyone that I've participated in thus far has yielded some great leads and some great conversations. And I think we want to think that it's true about being in virtual. You can really reach the entire world, but oftentimes I think I come away with what I would come away with from one good fair, just in one country. So it's not like specifically equating the same in terms of like, oh, you think you can reach the whole world. But I think focusing on where you feel like you can have good relationships or good follow-up with guidance counselor or with students. I'm lucky enough to work on a team, so I don't have to cover the whole world, and I know plenty of colleagues in the field who are, up at all hours covering all over the globe. So I feel a little bit like I've lucked out in this sense that I've just chosen ones that have worked out for me. But it's definitely a challenge in these times to know which ones are going to pan out and be worthwhile. So I guess I don't really have an answer to that, more of just like yeah, it's tough.
If we as marketer believes that we're going to get the bulk of our application from a fair or a virtual fair, then I think we are utterly very, very wrong. I think the question is, who are your closest partner and who do you want to support during this pandemic? Because this is going to be a long haul strategic planning for both parties in order for us to reach our enrollment goal.
Absolutely. I think you're both spot on. I think it's also very important to remember that virtual events are often more of a conversion activity than they are top of the funnel lead generation. A lot of times students will come to you and say, I've already researched you. I already know I want this major, that sort of thing. So really important to keep that in mind as well. Also, just want to give a huge shout out to all of the recruiters on here who have been doing these middle of the night events, fairs, webinars, all sorts of things. I've spoken to so many partners who are just exhausted working all hours of the night. So we hear you and we support you tremendously. So major props to all of you. And with that, we will close the webinar. I want to thank all of our speakers so much for being here with us, sharing your strategies. It's so valuable for all of our partners to hear. And we hope to see you all on the next IDP Connect webinar. Thanks all.